Hello everyone and welcome back to the Lindores Abbey Rapid Challenge. It's Wesley Sooooo versus Magnus Carlsen, and this is their second match. As we already mentioned, they are playing 3 matches. Well, 3 if it's 1-1. If not, then just 2, obviously. And Wesley lost the first match. So here Wesley needs to win the match to force match number 3. And Wesley already lost game 1. Game 2 was drawn, and this is game 3. So Wesley really should win to get back into the match, and it's really a wild game with a lot of winning chances for both sides. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Now let's check it out. Wesley with the white pieces opens with knight f3. He goes for the Radić opening, but after d5 and d4, we transpose into the queen's gambit decline. We have c4 and e6, and the queen's gambit decline is on the board, and g3. Wesley goes for the Catalan opening. We have d captures on c4, and now bishop to g2. We have bishop to b4 check by Magnus, bishop to d2 blocking, and now a5, also very popular. We have castles by both sides, and here we have knight to a3 by Wesley, going after the c4 pawn, but also saying to Magnus, you can also capture and play b5 if you want to defend that pawn, but by doing so you are giving up your bishop pair. So Magnus goes for it. He's more of a knight man anyway. So bishop captures on a3, b captures on a3, and b5 now. So defending the c4 pawn, and this seems to be one of the few lines where it is okay to defend the c4 pawns in structures like these. And there are known moves. Rook to b1 is a known move going after the pawn here. Knight e5 is a known move going opening up this discovery towards the rook. But queen to b1, the move Wesley plays, is a new move, so already as a move 10 we have a completely new game. So the b pawn is under attack, Magnus defends it, and also if the knight comes, the bishop will not be attacking the rook, so the c6 move does make sense. We have e4 by Wesley, and now h6, taking away the g5 square from Wesley's pieces. And now, as Carlsen was able to save the pawn, he still has all 8 pawns. However, he's a bit behind on development. Not too much, but he is. And that's why Wesley decides to go for the attack. With the g4, he wants to play g5 and bust open the position. So Magnus goes knight to h7 to keep an eye on the g5 square, and now even h4 going for g5. And now there is a principle in chess that says that when your opponent is attacking you on the flank, meaning on the king side or queen side, you should counterattack in the center. And even if you don't figure out what to play here, like Magnus, he played e5, which is the strongest move here. By simply knowing the principle, you will be able to maybe figure out a move. You're going to go like, okay, he's attacking me on the king side, I'm just going to play a principled e5 move, which means I'm counterattacking in the center. So it opens up the attack towards the g4 pawn from the bishop, also puts pressure on this pawn. So a lot of things happening here. And Wesley decides to go for knight captures on e5. He grabs the pawn and defends the g4 pawn with the knight. However, d5 is very, very interesting. Point being that after captures and captures, you don't really have the option of capturing with the queen because of knight g5. And knight g5 threatens mate, but also threatens the queen. Also, the rook is behind the queen, so it's really just a brutal move. Black does have e4, which cuts off both diagonals, but then just white just picks up the pawn. For example, queen captures, bishop captures, again attacking the knight and the rook. And here we go into an extremely complicated rook a6, knight captures on h7, where Wesley would be up a piece, but after, let's say, bishop c3 and bishop captures on g4, there is no way for this knight to get back into the game. And at some point, probably you can play g6 and just pick it up, but it would be very, very complicated. So this is one option here if you go d5. But it's a rapid game, of course, you don't have all that much time to calculate, so Wesley goes knight captures on e5, and the queen captures on d4, now putting pressure on the knight. Bishop to f4, as the bishop is also under attack, so bishop to f4, defending it, parrying both threats, and now rook to e8, with a double attack on the knight here. And Wesley finds the very interesting queen to c1, saying to Magnus, if you try and give up your rook for 2 pieces with rook captures on e5, then I have this very interesting rook to d1, and you have back rank issues here. For example, if queen to c5, if you want to keep an eye on the rook here, rook d8 check, you can block with knight to f8, but now just rook captures on c8, you win back your piece, and you cannot move the rook, otherwise you're going to lose this piece as well, as the bishop and the rook would be attacking that. So very, very complicated. So Magnus doesn't go for it. He doesn't try and grab this. He first moves the queen. Now rook to d1 at least doesn't come with an attack on the queen, but it should still pose some back rank issues for black. Again, if captures, just rook d8 check, and you can pick up the bishop and still have a lot of pressure across the 8th rank. So knight to a6, Magnus starts developing, brings the knight into the game, and now Wesley goes for it. As you can see, the bishop still x-raying that rook on a8. He goes for knight captures on c6. And okay, Magnus captures it, and now e5, opening up an attack towards the rook, so queen has to move, and now bishop captures rook on a8. However, Magnus has bishop captures on g4, which opens up an attack on the bishop, but also on the rook on d1. So Wesley figures out how to defend. Bishop to e3, he needs this move to get the d4 square for his rook. So queen captures on e5, getting the queen out of the way, and only now rook to d4, saying now, okay, if you capture, I can capture on g4. But knight to f6 by Magnus, now defending the bishop, and now Wesley doesn't go all the way back with the bishop, but first bishop to c6. He first wants to weaken the 8th rank before going all the way back to g2. So rook to e6, attacking Wesley's bishop, and only now Wesley goes back with bishop to g2. Now Magnus needs to get this knight back into the game, so knight to c5. And of course the knight now wants to come to d3, where it will be an incredibly strong piece, and now Wesley goes queen to c3. For the moment there are no any super useful discoveries, as well, the rook still guards the queen, but if the rook moves, some rook d8 check would definitely pick up the queen. So a nice prophylactic move, king to h7, better avoid threats before there are any even there. And here, as Wesley is down some material, he decides to grab this on a5. So queen captures on a5, and now finally knight to d3. The knight is now an incredibly strong piece. However, Wesley finds the very nice rook to b1. He goes after the b5 pawn, and you don't really have any ways of defending it, so Magnus finds a queen to f5. And it comes with the idea of shifting the queen over to g6 to be on the same file as the king, and then you will be able to do some damage with maybe queen g6 and bishop to f3, maybe queen g2 checkmate, and so on. So rook captures on b5 by Wesley, queen to g6, and now queen to a8. Now adding a defender to the bishop here, so we don't have ideas like bishop to f3 and bishop to h3 will not be as powerful. So Magnus goes knight to e5, and this is incredibly strong as it prepares knight to f3 check. However, Wesley finds a very nice solution to his problems. He plays rook to d8. Now the problem is, well, there's just this rook to h8 checkmate problem, and if you go knight to f3 check right away, king h1 pretty much solves all of white's problems. There's no way to continue the attack. There are no checks. There's nothing here. So what Magnus does is he goes knight to e8, and when you look at this move, it's really weird because you're giving up a knight here, but it's not, not everything is as it seems. The problem is here the best move for white is you might even want to pause the video and try and figure out the best move for white while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting the absolute best move for white, and pretty much the only move that gives white the advantage. So for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's king to h1. It's still the best move as the previous time I asked. Problem is, there's no way for black to continue. This now doesn't come with check. There's no way to pin this bishop. So what black needs to do is black will lose a piece, and there still is the threat of checkmate. Black can try something like this to go after the h4 pawn, but then after captures, you're going to capture with check, and after king to g1, you will trade here, captures, and now knight f3 check, but king f1, and white is not only surviving, but white is better here, as white is up a whole rook. And it is a bit crowded here in front of the white king, but nothing white will not be able to handle. So here, after knight e8, king to h1, definitely the best move. However, Wesley first captures the knight, and now it's a bit different. Now Magnus captures the rook back, we have queen captures, and now knight to f3 with check. And now it's different. Wesley does go king to h1, but here you are not so safe. So once again, feel free to pause the video and try to find the winning move now for Magnus while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations, as it's the only move for black to win. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's queen to d3. Now the problem is there's no defense against queen to d1. Whatever you do here, still the queen guards b1, so you cannot block with the rook. Let's say you try something like this, or any move for that matter, just queen d1 check. White only has one move, bishop f1, and queen captures here is checkmate, as the queen covers g2 and the knight covers h2. And if you try something like bishop captures on f3, removing one of the attackers, it doesn't help you because of queen f1 check. You're gonna go king to h2, queen h3 check, king g1, and now after bishop captures, there is no defense against queen to h1 checkmate. So the king has nowhere to go, and the white can only prolong the game a bit, but yeah, it's pointless. So after queen to d3, Wesley played bishop to d2 to try and prevent queen to d1. Maybe checking if Magnus will maybe capture with the knight, so maybe he can continue the game. But Magnus just played queen captures on d2, and it was in this position that Wesley Sooooo resigned the game. And with this game, he also loses match 2, which means match 3 will not happen, and Magnus Carlsen is the second semi-finalist who will face Hikaru Nakamura in the semi-finals. So here you resign, as there is nothing more to be done here. Problem is, after queen to e4 check, yes, it does look good. For example, if g6, you can pick up the knight and continue the game. However, Magnus says f5. Now the queen is under attack, and you don't have time to pick up any pieces. After the queen moves wherever, you're going to play queen captures on f2, and there is no defense here. Let's say queen f1, you can still just play queen captures on h4 with check. The king has no squares, the knight covers all of this. If you go here, just captures, and let's say bishop g4 check, we'll pick up the queen, and that's it. So yeah, after queen captures on d2, Wesley resigned the game, and a very nice victory for Magnus Carlsen, who, as I mentioned, goes into the semifinals to face Hikaru Nakamura. So yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. A very, very nice game by both of them, and a lot of winning chances for both of them. So, you know, someone has to win. And I would like to thank Jack Hetherington, Pavel Rozival, Thomas Connors, Alexandre Monayer, and Nathaniel Lemke for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the Lindores Abbey Rapid Challenge, checking up on your wonderful suggestions, and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.